Today, we're going to talk about a writer who looked at the way stories were told and decided to just break it. He showed us that maybe the most interesting part of a story isn't what happened, but who's telling it and why. His name was Ford Madox Ford. So let's just start with this one question, because it's everything. What if that voice guiding you through a book, the one you're supposed to trust, what if they're confused or biased? Or, what if they're flat out lying to you? This one single radical idea is pretty much the heart of Ford Madox Ford's entire revolution. So how exactly did he pull this off? Well, here's the plan. First, we're going to meet Ford, the modernist maverick, the guy who is challenging all the old roles. Then we'll get into his most famous weapon, the unreliable narrator. We'll see how he used it to capture the chaos of World War I. And finally, we'll figure out why his century-old ideas still totally shape the movies and books we love today. Okay, so to really get Ford, you have to get the world he was pushing back against. See, he wasn't just another writer. He was like an architect for a whole new way of thinking called Modernism. And it was all about tearing down the old, stuffy ways of telling stories. So this is the man himself. Born in 1873, Ford grew up in a world that was just buzzing with change. You had industrialization, the new science of psychology. There was this feeling everywhere that the old certainties were just, falling apart. And Ford wasn't just caught up in it. He was right in the middle of it all. A critic, an editor, a major player in this artistic shakeup. And this right here, this lays out the whole battleground. The old-school Victorian novels give you a really clear path, right? A story that went from A to B to C, with a narrator who told you the absolute truth. But Ford and the other modernists looked at the real world, how messy and confusing our own minds are, and said, nope, that's not how life actually feels. So they smashed timelines, they dug deep into psychology, and, most importantly, they blew up the whole idea of a single objective truth. And get this, Ford wasn't just playing the game. He was practically the coach. As an editor, he was the one who discovered and promoted some of the biggest names of the 20th century. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was basically building the modernist movement from the ground up, creating the space for all these wild new ideas to even exist. But Ford didn't just help other people. Oh no. He made his own massive contribution. And this is where he really, truly changed everything. This is where he perfected the art of the unreliable narrator. Now here's the key. An unreliable narrator isn't just some flawed character telling a story. It is a deliberate, calculated trick. Ford uses the narrator's faulty memory and their personal biases as a tool. He's basically turning us, the readers, into detectives. He's forcing us to piece together what really might have happened from between the lines. And if you want to see the master at work, you have to look at his 1915 novel, The Good Soldier. On the surface, it seems so simple. It's about two wealthy, perfect couples on vacation in Europe right before World War I. Everything looks so elegant and proper, but underneath all that polish, it's just a total mess of affairs, lies, and emotional chaos. The book opens with this killer line from our narrator, John Dowell, and it's just brilliant. Think about it. He doesn't say, here are the facts. He says, this is the saddest story. Boom. Right from sentence one, he's telling you that everything you're about to hear is filtered through his own emotional lens. We're not getting a report. We're getting his version. And Ford just keeps building that doubt piece by piece. The story doesn't happen in order. It leaps all over the place in time, just like our own messy memories. Dowell will tell you something, and then a few chapters later, he'll say, actually, wait a minute, maybe that's not how it was. The story is always about his emotional confusion, not about clear-cut facts. It just forces you to constantly second-guess everything. But Ford didn't stop there, with just the quiet betrayals inside a marriage. He took these same techniques and scaled them way up to capture the collapse of an entire civilization, the world that was shattered by the First World War. His next big thing, Parade's End, was even more ambitious. I mean, it wasn't just one book. It was a tetralogy, a huge 4-novel epic that just dives headfirst into the trauma and fallout of the war. Our hero is this guy, Christopher Hitchens, and he's totally a man out of time. People call him the last Tory. He's this English gentleman who's desperately trying to hold on to his code of honor while the whole world around him is just descending into the mud and madness of trench warfare. These 4 books came out all through the 1920s, so you can imagine people reading them as they themselves were trying to make sense of the war. They followed Tidgens' journey in almost real time, from the final days of the Old World through the absolute horror of the war and into its confusing aftermath. And just like he did before, Ford made the style match the subject. The story is all broken up, it jumps between different points of view, which perfectly mirrors the shell-shocked, chaotic world it's describing. It's this incredible look at trauma, at the end of an era, and at the deep sense of loss that an entire generation was feeling. So let's tie this all together. We're talking about a novelist who's been gone for over 80 years. Why does any of this still matter? What is his actual legacy? Well, it really all comes down to this. Ford Madox Ford changed the DNA of storytelling. It's that simple. After him, a novel wasn't just about what happened next. It was an experience shaped by someone's messy perspective and memory. He proved once and for all that how you tell the story is just as important as the story itself. I mean, look at this list. His contributions are just huge. He gave us the unreliable narrator as this incredibly sophisticated tool. He mastered the art of telling stories out of order to show how memory really works. He took us deeper into his characters' minds than ever before and showed us how a book's very structure could feel like the chaos of the real world. And on top of all that, he mentored a whole generation of other brilliant writers. And you know what? His influence is absolutely everywhere now. Seriously, think about it. Every movie that messes with time, like with tons of flashbacks, or any TV show where you're not sure you can trust the main character, you are feeling the ripple effects of what Ford Madox Ford started doing over 100 years ago.
Which kind of leaves us with one last big question. Ford didn't just break the rules of telling a story. He kind of broke our trust in the storyteller. And by doing that, he forces us to ask something much bigger. In a world where everyone has their own version of events, can any story ever really have just one single, simple